Okay, welcome back to the PCC podcast. And today we are talking pregnancy, postpartum fitness, and with none other than our pregnant coach, Rachel. How far along are you now, though?
I am 25 weeks.
Wow, so you're officially 6 months.
I know. It's crazy. Last week we hit that 6 month mark and I'm like, it's getting real out here.
Yeah. How are you feeling, though, like
I
overall?
I felt really, really lucky this pregnancy. Very blessed. I felt really good. I think my biggest complaint is literally I'm just congested all the time. Like aside from that, I'm like, but everyone says that I know that's experienced this. It's like once you get the baby out, the congestion goes with it. And I'm like, all right,
Yeah.
15 more weeks of this.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, if a runny nose is your biggest problem, it's like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm
I'm
grateful.
doing pretty well.
Nice. Cool. Well, we're going to break down all of the trimesters. And what'll be cool is you'll have like your experience to speak to at least the first and the second. Because when you go into the third, it's week, what,
28.
28?
Yeah.
So soon. So you're basically through one and two. So you
Yeah.
can speak to those
Crazy.
more. Yeah. And then really a big piece of what we want to do is we'll cover, expectations around trimesters one, two, and three for fitness and nutrition guidelines. But I think where I've had the most conversations, I have a lot of clients in this trying to conceive or getting fit before trying to conceive or newly pregnant for the first time or newly postpartum for the first time because I think we're in our late 20s, early 30s, like that is the demographic, right? And I think the bigger things that come up in coaching conversations are all of the noise and the misconceptions around pregnancy and postpartum. And we're just going to debunk like all of it. So,
I'm here for it. My pregnant clients are constantly like, is this normal? Should I accept this? I'm like, all right, let's talk about it.
yeah, sweet. So, we're going to run through first just what are the typical expectations and guidelines for trimesters one, two, three, and four, four being postpartum. So I guess like I'll let you take the lead here, Rachel, especially because you have gone through at least half of this now. So what are some of the kind of general guidelines for someone to expect and kind of be working through with fitness and nutrition in
Yeah.
pregnancy?
Yeah. Okay. So, first trimester, I think really first and second when it comes to fitness wise, until your bump is getting in the way of exercise or you're feeling like something is making you uncomfortable, cramping, like anything is causing discomfort, you're 99% sure you're good to just keep doing it. And most doctors will tell you that if you've done something before pregnancy, you can keep doing it, right? You're not going to try to train for your first marathon if you've never run before prior to getting pregnant. But most things you're doing fitness related are probably fine, especially in first and second trimester. There's lots you can do, breathing exercises and all this birth prep you can do. And if you want to dive into that, we absolutely can. But that gets a little more nitty gritty. I think just general thing is, I think people have these fears that, wow, I can't do any of this now that I'm pregnant. And I'm like, no, 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 you absolutely can. I think the few things that I've really switched are if I was doing I think we had, when we worked out together, we were doing that bent over row, but it was the machine
Chest
row.
supported,
Yes, the
like
chest support. Thank
like
you.
pressing
Exactly.
on it. Yeah.
Yeah. And it just was like a little awkward feeling. I'm like, this might make me have to pee. So I'm like, that's really it. But it wasn't like, I'm like, oh, this is going to cause damage. Like your baby is in there. Baby is well protected with placenta, amniotic fluid. So try not to overly stress any specific movements. Even if you are, hey, that movement made me a little uncomfortable. Okay, don't do it again, right? Like you don't have to continue things that don't feel right within your body. Trust yourself. You know your body at the end of the day better than anyone else does. But also remembering that you're capable of much more than the fear mongering things you're going to see out there during pregnancy, especially in regards to the fitness aspect of things. So,
I will add
yeah, please. Sorry.
like just the mentality I think underneath what you're saying is like you are not a delicate piece of glass that is going to break at the first sign of like trouble. Like for example, your baby's doing healthy is healthy and fine right now, right? So remember when you were playing beach volleyball and you got absolutely trucked by like a 190-pound male running for a ball?
Yeah, I do.
I heard that story and I was like, well, I'm glad everything's okay.
Exactly. So just like you said, I'm like, a lot can happen during pregnancy. Baby is protected. You are in a good spot. So just trusting your body's got this. You've got this. Not putting yourself in a position where you're going to get, football hit multiple times, obviously.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
at the end of the day, knowing that we are not delicate because we are pregnant, we are capable. And like you see people, I saw someone actually, I don't remember who I was talking to about this, that did she's a runner, like an ultra marathoner, and I can't remember her name right now, but I saw on
Yeah.
Instagram she had done we talked about this, was it
Coco
Coconut
Donut 250?
yeah, yeah. I was about to say
You're
500.
about to say
I'm
500.
like, ooh, she's doubling it. But yeah, the 250. And I'm like, that's insane. Like, I mean, they monitored baby the entire time. She was good. So just knowing we aren't delicate, you're not a little piece of paper now that you're pregnant. Like, you are fine. You're resilient. You've got
Yeah.
this.
I also followed, do you follow Sohee Lee?
I don't know if I do actually.
She's a great person to follow, I would, but
Yeah.
she just had her first baby and she ran a marathon while she was pregnant and she's been running half marathons, not like to any crazy extent, but like just to prove like, hey, you can do these things while you're pregnant. And also, this really helped one of my clients who is newly pregnant. She's about 9 or 10 weeks now. And when found the news out, she was like, I am terrified. I'm so scared of everything. Like, help. What can I do? What can't I do? And so I was being the nerd that I am, I went and found the ACSM and ACOG guidelines because those were recently updated within the past, I think, 5 years to state that you can, because before it was like, don't lift anything over 10 pounds. And like, there will still be practitioners out there that say that are not caught up to the research. So, like, keep that in mind that sometimes you just get a bad luck of the draw with a practitioner or provider. But it does state you can do exercise that you were previously doing, and you can start new forms of exercise in pregnancy as well, as long as it's guided and safe and obviously reasonable. So, like, are you going to go from never working out to doing CrossFit 7 days a week? Obviously not, but like, we wouldn't recommend that to a not pregnant person either.
Yeah, exactly. It's just using common sense at the end of the day and not pushing your body to a point where it's like, all right, we're doing too much here, right? Like you said,
Yeah.
you wouldn't do that if you weren't pregnant. So don't do something that you would do if you weren't pregnant when you are. But I think a big thing is just overall, in terms of fitness side of things, maintain movement. That is so important. And I know many people during their first trimester, especially, might experience some of the more severe symptoms like nausea, extreme fatigue, all the good things. I definitely had some of that fatigue first, but I was lucky enough to miss that nausea. But biggest thing was I was like, even if I'm showing up at the gym and it is not my 110% I give all the other time, I'm still showing up for myself. And it might not look the same every single day, and that's okay. But that and getting in walks, right? Like moving your body is just so, so, so important. Stretching, even like just keeping some movement going. I could not stress that enough, how I feel like that's helped me throughout. I know we're not to the finish line yet, but we're getting there.
Yeah, for sure. And I think honestly, this is kind of a hot topic to come from someone who has never been pregnant and doesn't have kids. But I have coached a lot of women through pregnancy at this point. And what I will say is that the ones that have maintained their movement, their nutrition at a higher standard for themselves compared to the ones that hadn't have very distinct trend lines in the types and severity of symptoms that they have. And everyone's pregnancy is different, and the symptoms that you experience are going to be genetically influenced by your genetics, the father's genetics, and so many other factors that we don't know about because we cannot ethically research pregnant women. But from anecdote, from years and years of this, I have seen like a very staggering difference, I will say, to where I do not think that it is just chance that you have felt the way that you have in this pregnancy, because we live 15 minutes apart. Like, I've seen how you've shown up for yourself and the discipline and the dedication that you keep, even if it's not perfect. And I remember this one time we were at the gym and you were like, Yeah, I just kind of realized you're probably like 12 weeks in. You're like, I just kind of realized like I'm going to be tired no matter what. So like I might as well show up and be tired.
It's better to get a tired workout in than none. Yeah. So could not agree more. And I know that is technically a hot take, hot topic,
Yeah.
but I agree. Again, we don't know all the data because you can't do research on pregnant people. But at the end of the day, I think that, like you said, I'm like a majority, even clients I have, I'm like that have had such better pregnancies, have not only maintained, focus on their health leading up to pregnancy, but then throughout the entire pregnancy as well. So I think just knowing that even if it doesn't look perfect, making what is the next choice I can make that's going to help me feel a little bit better, right? I know many people I've seen that are super nauseous in that first trimester, especially. It's like, well, all I want is sweets. All I want is sweets. All I want are carbs or whatever it might be. And I'm like, okay, but how can we fit a protein in there? Because it's going to help so much with the nausea. How can we fit in some electrolytes? Like little things you can do that will go such a long way in how you feel for the remainder of the trimester and pregnancy. So,
Yeah. I'll just add, like, that's not to say that you can't like show up perfectly for your pregnancy and still feel like shit, right?
yeah,
Like you could
agreed.
still have terrible symptoms and like that could just be the genetic side, the luck of the draw side, like that sucks. But like in that perspective, I always think like, well, then how much worse would it have been if you didn't show up that way, right? So like always just kind of keeping that perspective of the internal locus of control and that you do have influence over your outcomes, because it's only going to help you. So, what about? So, you kind of bridged us into this with saying like, "Oh, eat your protein because it's going to help with the nausea." I have a friend who is pregnant. I'm on her close friend story on Instagram, and she's probably just a couple weeks behind you. But she put on her close friends the other day. She was like, "Signed to myself to start tracking my protein again because oh my god, the nausea." And I just like didn't really, because I've never been pregnant. I didn't realize that those two things could be related. But like, let's talk about nutrition through pregnancy. Like, what are the appropriate expectations to have there?
Yeah. And this can be hot take too, right? I mean, anything pregnancy related can be. But what I'm going to say for first trimester is really maintaining the nutrition. Obviously, you want to focus on getting in adequate protein and making sure you're fueling your body as best you can. But when it comes to first trimester nutrition, not much needs to change in terms of like caloric intake, right? Second and third is where you start to increase. But what I will say to kind of tag off of where we started was making sure you are getting in protein helps so much, so much. Blood sugar balance is king in pregnancy, not only for nausea, but then later down the road, this one again can now be a hot take because some people get gestational diabetes and eat super healthy the entire pregnancy. Like I know two or three people now who have gotten gestational diabetes after treating their pregnancy as if it was almost like a bodybuilding style prep. So that's not to say it can't happen, truly, but it is more of a rarity if you are prioritizing eating well balanced meals, eating enough protein, not solely eating carbs by themselves 24/7, right? Like it's not to say when you're pregnant you can't lean into a craving here and there, but I think that some people make that their entire personality. And it's like, I'm pregnant. All I want is this. My cravings this, my cravings that. And while I so understand that it can be hard to fight them sometimes, if we can really, really lean into that willpower and really pair it with some protein at least, right? You want ice cream? Okay, but can we have like a meal first? Can we have like some sort of protein first, right? Like just the little things you do make such a big difference. But yeah, I think that kind of covers first and in general. But then second is where, okay, when you're in the second trimester, that's body needs a little more energy. You can start adding some caloric intake there. That's typically, especially if you're working out, strength training, or whatever form of workout you're doing, making sure that you're adding anywhere from like 200 to 350 calories each day. Super helpful in terms of making sure that you are just eating enough to support your body and baby's growth. And then third, anywhere from 350 to like 450 to 500 even. Again, as long as we're still, you want to eat more, but especially if you're working out, you're making sure that you're getting in that movement. That's super, super important. But I'd say in general, the same thing applies through all three, four trimesters, making sure that you are promoting blood sugar balance, getting in protein, staying hydrated. I will say, I actually had a client who was pretty nauseous. And once we implemented electrolytes, nausea
Mm,
went away completely.
wow.
So something as simple as making sure you truly are hydrated, not just from water, but electrolytes
Yeah.
can be a game changer too. So,
Interesting. No, that's really cool. I appreciate the note on the gestational diabetes too, because I think a lot of times, because you have to take like the glucose test, and like I think a lot of people get really stressed out about that. But I actually, and I reference this a lot, not because I like to play the victim card, but because it's actually really interesting. Because I don't know if you knew this, but like Asians and African Americans specifically have like a higher predisposition to like increased blood sugar, just like at baseline, even at lower body weights. And so, like, I have a client who, like, generally she has crushed it. She's lost like 25 pounds and then she got pregnant. That was a big goal of hers. She is still technically considered overweight. So I think that the cards were not in her favor on that. But she did get the gestational diabetes diagnosis late into her pregnancy. She's actually, I'm drafting her check in. She's 1 to 4 weeks out from delivery. So we'll see. We'll
awesome.
see when she pops. But she got that diagnosis. And in her check in today, she literally said, because we made some tweaks to her nutrition to avoid like carbs on their own, and she said I have figured out my threshold readings, and after last week where I had 5 over threshold readings, I have been good ever since. And so, like, one thing I was really hammering home with her was like, you are not like married to this diagnosis because they told you you have gestational diabetes does not mean that you can't actually manage your blood sugar better post diagnosis. And who's to say that your blood sugar can't be lower than the thresholds after the diagnosis comes? It's just they can't take it back. But like at the end of the day, like you can still control that. And so we've really been working on that. So it's not to say that if you do get slapped with something like that, that it's not something that you can do anything about.
right. And it's very manageable. Actually, I take my test in 2.5 or 3 weeks for the first time, the 1 hour test. And if I pass that, we're good. If not, I do the 3 hour.
Uh-huh.
And I think it's like I'm nervous going into it, even though I know I'm like, I've moved my body, I've eaten healthy, I've prioritized protein. I'm not just like eating carbs on an empty stomach or doing anything that's crazy per se. So, but I'm still nervous going in. And there is the fear mongering around it. But I had a pretty good conversation with one of my midwives recently, and she had told me that she's like, yeah, we have clients that come in all the time and end up having it after checking every box, doing all the right things. And she's like, at the end of the day, it's nothing that you necessarily have to stress about if you can manage it with your diet. She's like, if you're looking and you're getting these spikes, because a lot of times they'll have you wear a continuous glucose monitor. And she's like, if you're seeing spikes that are over the threshold, time and time and time again, and we have to get you on insulin, that's where it's like, hey, it's a little quote unquote, it's not serious, but it's more serious. But she's like, 99% of people are able to manage it just by diet alone. And that's it. So, like you said, I think there's a lot of fear around a lot of these things, but at the end of the day, it can be well managed on your own as long as you just have someone in your corner to help you understand how to manage it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to actually call back to what you were saying about the calorie increases, because one clarification for anyone, you're referencing keeping things the same on a maintenance level intake. So whenever somebody does get pregnant, as a coach, like a lot of times we get the question of like, does it make sense to use coaching right now? Like, should I be, should I pause, or should I, like, how is this, where's the utility in it, essentially? And it's just like, it makes sense, you want to get your money's worth, but like immediately pulling that person out of a calorie deficit if they're in a fat loss phase, because what we don't want to do is fuel your body less than you need to be eating when you're not only maintaining your own body's needs, but now also building a human being out of nothing, right? And so that's an important caveat. And honestly, like, you know what I think about all the time? Not all the time. I don't think about pregnancy all the time, but but you know what I think about when I think about like this topic in pregnancy is how many people out there don't monitor their nutrition and still get through their pregnancies, which like it reinforces the point of like our bodies are so resilient. Like like people are out there just maintaining, horrible habits and still pop out babies. So it's like your body will make do, but you can certainly make it easier on yourself. But like, and especially with the types of symptoms that people tend to see in the first trimester, I'm just sitting here wondering like how many people are eating like 1,000 calories a day in their first trimester and just like
Literally.
just suffering.
No, I could not agree more. That's such, first of all, a good point on the maintenance thing. I'm like, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. You have to be at maintenance. But all that being said, yeah, I'm like, there's so many people who, if they're maintaining what they're currently doing, I'm like, that is them probably severely under eating. And they still, many of them have healthy, happy babies that come out just fine. So just thinking, like you said, about if we can only do things to optimize here, why would we not, right? If we're going to only make our lives easier during pregnancy and postpartum by prioritizing these things, then what's the
Yeah.
harm?
Yeah. But it also, right? So maintenance intake, add 250 calories, add 500 calories. Like that also debunks that eating for two because, and I think that that's like very much, I don't know, maybe it's our parents' generation and like what they might put on us, but like you need to eat, you need to make sure the baby grows. But like, I mean, the actual recommended weight gain for a pregnancy is 25 to 35 pounds, right?
Yep, that's exactly it.
So it's not, yeah, it's just not a ton. And like a lot of that is fluid and things like that. And so when you hear about people who they got pregnant and they gained, 50, 80, 100 pounds, like we have to start asking the question of like how much of that was necessary.
100%.
And that's where we could be making it harder on ourselves recovery wise than we need it to be.
Yeah, I actually thought I wanted to include this because I think when I saw this the first time, I was like, because mind blown. Sorry if you're not watching, I was mind blown. But so I think it's cool to see and hear what the weight gain is actually from. And I wrote this down because I wanted to
Mm.
make sure I have it exactly right. So, baby, right, give or take 6 to 9 pounds. Obviously, you can have a heavier, lighter baby, but somewhere in there is average. Placenta, 1.5 to 2 pounds. Amniotic fluid, 2 to 3 pounds. Increased blood volume, 3 to 4 pounds. That is, I think it's interesting. Your blood volume really does increase from 40 to 50% throughout pregnancy, which is just crazy to think about. Breast tissue, 2 to 3 pounds. Uterus growth, 2 to 3 pounds. Fluid retention, 2 to 3 pounds. And then maternal energy stores, somewhere between 5 and 9 pounds.
What is
So,
that? Fat?
I was thinking about that and I'm like, yes, I think so. It was like,
Yeah.
I was reading through the PPN certification and I was like, maternal energy stores, like, is that
Is
fat?
that a fancy word for body fat?
I'm thinking yes, but it makes sense. I will say that was something I noticed that I was like, okay, I'm not, by no means have I been feeling like I'm like, holy crap, I've gotten fat. But I do think something I've pretty commonly seen now is, especially with progesterone increasing, you get a little bit more just fullness on your hip area. And that was something I experienced.
Okay.
I had a few friends who have. And with progesterone, that can be a sign that, hey, if your hips are a little fuller, like a lot of people when they start taking progesterone and as HRT or whatever experience that. So, but yeah, I think just like actually seeing and hearing the numbers, it's like that's crazy. And like some of these are the high ends, right? Some people are way on the lower ends of these things. So knowing that even if you all add all that up, that's going to keep you pretty much in that 25 to 35 pound range pretty consistently. Again, that's not shaming anyone who's gained more. That's not any of that. It's just knowing what you're gaining and knowing that we do have so much more control than I think that many of us think we do throughout pregnancy is just nice to hear.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, I mean, it's just like there's no like you said, shame intent, but at the same time, like if hearing that is triggering of like, but I was doing everything I possibly could and I still gained 50 pounds or something like that. Like I think it's an opportunity to say, okay, like what don't I know about nutrition or exercise that I could learn through like a coaching experience, right? So
Inward.
yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. No, I just definitely think it's, yeah, like you said, if it's triggering, look inward. How can we maybe, if you're getting pregnant again, do things a little bit differently next time?
Yeah. So for like nutrition specifically for trimester 3, I know you're entering it soon, But I want to hear, like, have you experienced, because it's something that I've seen come up really commonly, is like third trimester, like you have to eat all these more calories, but your stomach is also squished against your rib cage. And so like it's this weird like battle of like I need to be like grazing all day. Like the way I tend to explain it to clients is like you basically just have to like shift like how you're thinking about eating. Like you used to eat these like three big meals. Now you might be grazing all day. You used to buy low fat, low carb, high volume type foods, and now we need to go for like whole milk or, nuts and seeds because you're not going to get the calories in otherwise. Like, have you experienced that up to this point yet?
Probably started the last like 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, even like any kind of bigger meal. I mean, I am stuffed to the point where I'm like heavy breathing.
Oh, wow.
So I've really been leaning into, and that doesn't happen very often nowadays. I'm like, we've definitely, like you said, leading into higher fat meals. I literally finished before we talked. I had like a snack plate and it was like hard boiled eggs and I had a cheese stick on it and I had some nuts like cranberry, freeze dried cranberry, like a little what it fruit. What is it?
I don't know.
Trail mix. Thank you. Someone help. That's on pregnancy brain. We'll go with that. And a few other little things. But I'm like, it was like 550, 600 calorie
Wow.
little snack. But I'm like, it's small. It wasn't like a ton of food. But ultimately, I'm like, doing little things like that has helped me a ton because I just need to get it in where I can. Because if I do a big meal, I'm going to feel horrible. And a lot of the times, bigger meals we're eating are oftentimes closer to dinner and going to bed when you feel like that, really uncomfortable. So, highly recommend, like you said, prioritizing higher fat, prioritizing. I even homemade like Rice Krispie treats the other day because I
Nice.
was like, this will be a nice little pre workout. It's like a little it's tasty too. I was like, this is great. And I'm like, it's a little more high calorie too. So I was like, little things like that. I have a couple of those. And I'm like, just making some small adjustments. And then, of course, had my hard boiled eggs with it too to make sure that we're getting some protein in with it.
Yeah.
But just making some adjustments throughout the day and focusing on some smaller meals here and there has gone a lot.
Yeah. And I think that's also like, I keep coming back to like the utility of coaching thing because it's like, I want to build my argument. But in all reality, like, I think the thing that you don't realize that you need in those moments, like it comes so naturally to you and I, because it's like, oh, we've been tracking our food for like 10 years. Like we know what's in everything. We know how to make swaps when things are difficult. But it's like, it's that level of adaptability that comes from knowledge that a lot of people are missing. Right. And so, like, if someone were to be pregnant just on their own, trying to navigate this, and they're like, you need to eat 2,700 calories a day for your third trimester, and this person has no appetite, cannot stomach more than, a couple bites in a sitting, it's like that's just going to lead to that person feeling really discouraged and like incapable of like really getting anything done for their goals. And so I really think like the undertone of a lot of these like common concerns and things that we need to do during pregnancy is like, how does, say, having a coach, learning about nutrition, learning about proper exercise, safety in that? Because if you don't feel safe exercising on your own before a pregnancy, like what do you think is going to happen during, right? And I think a lot of it actually starts like beforehand. And so like I have one client she is a fitness coach, and she signed up with us when she was 25. She must be like 28 now. It's been like 3 years. But in that time frame, she spent a year really nailing down her foundations, learning the ins and outs of her fitness more than she ever had before. And then she got pregnant, and then she had a baby, and now she has a 18-month-old or something like that. And but she credits like having the foundation down before she got pregnant to why everything else came easier. Because like the way I always like to frame it is like, yeah, if you think life's difficult before a kid, like once you have a physical human being dependent on you all the time, any of the chaos that you're living in is just going to get amplified. So it's like get the systems down beforehand, or if at worst case scenario during, like it's
Yeah.
not uncommon to have someone sign up like at the beginning of a pregnancy either. And I've had that happen a couple times where it actually was a game changer.
Yeah.
So
I have a client right now who she's probably 30 weeks pregnant, I want to say, and she re-signed when she found out she was pregnant. Initially, she was like, "What should I do?" And then we talked through it, and she's like, "Actually, no, I'm just going to add on a year to my contract because I know I'm going to need you through this, and I'm going to need you on the other side of it too." And the amount of grateful messages I get for her or from her, that I'm just so grateful to have the support and have the communication that we have. So she's not questioning things, feeling confident in her choices, and also in the situation, right? Where it's like 2,700 calories a day. Like that's a lot of food, right? And it's like, I'm doing the best I can. I'm just not gonna be able to hit it today. And instead of sitting in the guilt, that's okay. Like, right? What can we do tomorrow? And that's a big thing too, I think, with pregnancy. There is, if you are someone who leans into this perfectionist mindset, you're trying to check all the boxes. If you have a day, if you're someone who experiences nausea, you are just extremely tired. I think that one, majority of people experience some of that level of exhaustion, and especially the first trimester and into the third, no matter what. And knowing that with that perfectionist mindset, that can be really challenging when you don't have someone to be like, it is okay. This is another way we can support this goal. This is something else we can do. Just have someone that has your back, because it's so easy to be your biggest critic, especially when you're pregnant. You're seeing your body change. You're feeling uncomfortable a little bit in your skin. Because I think that's a big thing, right? Like I've been in the fitness space for 10 plus years, and I'm like, wow, this is something that I'm like, wow, I love it. It's great. It's so amazing. I'm so grateful for it. It is very uncomfortable to see your body change, and you can only do what you can do, right? Some people's body change in the way that it's like I just gained this perfectly round little bump and then everything else looks the same. And some other people, that's not the case. So at the end of the day, you control what you can and we do what we can, but knowing that you have someone that can like validate and understand your experience through it is very valuable, very helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, we didn't even touch on the mindset piece. Gosh, yeah. The perfectionism, the body image, like especially if you're someone who struggles with that already, like pregnancy just amplifies what's there. You know how they say like more money, more problems. It's like whatever whenever you make more money, the problems you had with money are just amplified. It's the same thing with pregnancy. And kind of along the same thread, and then after that we'll move into like fourth trimester types of things. One other thing that I think is really under talked about is like boundaries with people in this season.
Yeah.
Because we were even just talking about it once at the gym of like how people will just come up and just touch your stomach, and I'm like, dude, like I wouldn't even like hug someone if they didn't give me permission. Like what? But I think with like family and loved ones, and even like the conversation of like who's going to be in the delivery room or things like that. This client that is newly pregnant that I've mentioned a couple times for this episode, she that was definitely one of her big concerns. And like I guess I can say without identifying her at all, she is South Asian, and Asian families in general, and like a lot of other ethnicities tend to be very, they tend to not, what's the word, they don't understand where they end and you begin.
Yeah. The boundaries are not in.
Yeah, your business is their business is your business. There's much less boundaries than like like a typical American family, let's say. That's kind of woke to personal space. So, with that being said, she was really worried about that. And I think really like that's a piece too where sometimes it's like you don't have the confidence to set the boundary yourself, or you don't know how. And like that's actually something that like I don't know if you have as well, but like I've actually like walked clients through like how to have this conversation, how to set a boundary in a way that is respectful but direct, and also like the acceptance of the fact of like they might not take it well, and like that's also not your responsibility. And I think the thing that what actually makes that easier is just building confidence in yourself through the vehicle of your fitness beforehand anyways, because then you can just like have more of a ground with yourself of like I'm confident in myself, and that's what builds up to being able to like draw the line in the sand.
No, could not agree more. And that's not to say, like you said, that's not an easy conversation to have, especially if you're having a conversation where you are putting a boundary there where
Yeah.
it's not an easy place to put. But at the end of the day, you see this struggle with the people who are the biggest people pleasers that struggle the most with the all or nothing mindset. And that is why having those conversations and having someone to kind of help you facilitate those conversations and come up with ways that is, respectful yet stern. Because at the end of the day, if your rule is, I don't want anyone kissing my baby, then people need to respect that. And that's all there is to it. There's no questions, ifs, ands, or buts. That's all there is. So sometimes you have to be the quote unquote mean guy, but it will get you the respect that you deserve and set that boundary that is necessary to be there in order for you to have that respect. So yeah, I've definitely had a couple of people that I've had to help through those conversations too, whether it's pregnancy related or just the boundaries in general. But
Yeah.
very, very important. And doing it, I would even say a little earlier on whenever possible. Like
Yeah.
in that second trimester, give them a minute to process it. And then on top of that, not having to worry about it when you're not knowing when you're going to go into labor and all the things as you get deeper into the third. So that'd be my biggest insight on that. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think, I know you mentioned like your level of not cares has gone up a lot since you've been pregnant, and it's like the maternal instinct of like, I'm going to protect my baby and my family's the most important. And like, I feel like that's truly biology. But have you noticed that trend in your clients too? Or do you feel like that's more based on personality?
No, I definitely have. I think it's just one of those things. Yeah, I think it's biological response, no questions asked. But I also think I a few of my friends that have kids that are, a year or two old were like, just wait until you get pregnant. Like, you're not going to give a crap about anything anymore except the things that matter. And I was like, yeah, okay, like for sure. And then it hit me. And I was like, oh, wow, they were right.
Yeah.
And it's just so true. Like, I've seen it in clients, I've very much seen it in myself. And I kind of love it. I'm like, at the end
Yeah.
of the day, I'm like, I wish I had this confidence
Yeah.
everything I was saying prior to, but I'm going to carry it with me moving forward and very happy about that one.
Yeah. For a recovering people pleaser, it's like, hey, it can make it a little bit easier.
100%.
Cool. Let's do trimester 4. So, what are, yeah, the general expectations for postpartum for training, nutrition, etc.?
Yeah. So obviously, again, there's a lot of people that have different views on this. I will say, I think absolutely, I think this goes without being said, that you need to prioritize some rest after you actually give birth. That is very, very important. What I will say, they have that typical 6 week, you get cleared at 6 weeks. A lot of the times, this is a conversation I've had with some of my midwives too. I'm like, hey, what are your opinions? And I've looked into some of the research on not getting in the gym and doing a full workout, but starting to work on like your pelvic floor and engaging your core, whether that is through breathing or some very, very simple exercises, starting at like 3 to 4 weeks out, just to help start tightening things up and promote healing and blood flow. The research on that is incredible. So that's not me saying, get in the gym, get working out. You can literally be laying on your couch to do some of it because it's breathing exercises. And there are some that are not, but it's nothing intense. I will say I'm starting to definitely lean more towards that and learn a little bit more about that because I think that's just important in, again, the healing process. That is more for a vaginal birth, I will say.
Yeah.
C-section, more
Different
recovery
story.
time for sure.
Yeah.
But I think it kind of, people do have that expectation though, that it's like, okay, I got to the 6 weeks, I got cleared. Now everything's normal again. Like, let's go back. And I will say, I promote getting back in the gym, moving your body as quickly as possible. Like, as soon as you're cleared, get back. But the reality is, too, you're probably going to be quite sleep deprived.
Yeah.
Hormonal shifts are going to be the biggest hormonal shift you'll have in your entire life right after pregnancy until you get pregnant again and do it again. And you're healing. So there's a lot of identity changes going on. There's a lot of like, you're learning to potentially feed your baby if you're breastfeeding. If not, you're still feeding your baby, right? There's just a lot going on, a lot of emotional ups and downs. So I do think it is an important time to not, we're not leaning into perfectionist mindset in the slightest here. We are not having an expectation of, I need to be going at 110% capacity like I was prior to.
Yeah.
But finding that middle ground of, hey, I really do need to get back into the gym. I know it makes me feel good. I know moving my body makes me feel good. I think that's my mindset behind it. But yeah, I guess I'd
Yeah.
love to hear any thoughts you have on it.
I mean, I completely agree. On the 6-week timeline thing, like I've definitely been in that boat as well. The more people that are in the fitness industry that I respect and know are evidence-based, like they read the research, like Sohi specifically, like she has gotten lit up in her comment section for lifting because she's been lifting weights before the 6-week mark, and she would post it and she's debunking it and she's creating this controversy around it to kind of spark the discussion. And again, like C-section, totally different story. But vaginal birth, like not having third or fourth degree tearing, like the more traumatic the physical damage, obviously the longer the rest period. But also when you think about like just the principle of like motion is lotion, like if you don't get blood flow to the area, it's actually going to heal slower. Right. And so just walking or doing breathing exercises to get your pelvic floor connected, to get your core connected again, like is going to activate the tissue so that it does heal. Right. And so there is a threshold of like, I think there's a reasonable amount of things that we can be doing at like the 3 or 4 week mark. And then at that point, it becomes very simply what can we layer in reasonably with this person? And like where is their bandwidth to do so. But also I think just looking at it from the lens of like you said, the hormonal shifts and the identity changes, and like when you've, let's say you've been living this fitness lifestyle all through, like before pregnancy, through pregnancy, it's like that's like an anchor for your identity. Like it's a part of self-care. It's something that grounds you. It's something that gives you space. And so like to completely neglect that for 6 weeks is a long time. Like it's going to fly by. Like everyone says that the first 3 months of postpartum is just a fucking blur. But like
Yeah.
but it's also like tangibly a long time in terms of like the stimulus your body gets or doesn't get. Right. And so I'm thinking about it as like, as self care, as mental health support, as something for you that helps you reconnect to yourself when your entire world is about this baby for these 6 weeks. Like just prioritizing movement for that reason, right? And you don't have to have this crazy physique goal or be thinking about bouncing back, like just to literally do it for you, to get back to that as quickly as reasonably possible, is 100% where I stand.
100%. And there's also research, and I'd have to continue looking into this further about PPD and getting back to exercise in a relatively quick manner. How, if we are prioritizing movement, and even if that is, a few days post birth, couple weeks, like a week, like getting on walks, right? Like
Yeah, getting
simply moving
outside.
your body, getting outside, getting vitamin D, like being outside can make such a big difference with the PPD aspect of things too. And like you said, just getting back into what feels like you, that if that fitness is something that's been a part of your life for an extended period of time, that is your anchor. That is your anchor that you can bring back and make you feel like that is your piece of you. Because with those identity shifts of who am I, because that's what I hear the biggest thing of. And that's where I'm like, who am I now? Like, am I, and I say this in the most loving way because a lot of my friends have said it, am I quote unquote just a mom now? Even though just a mom is not a thing. You're working your ass off. You're doing so much. Moms do a million things. But that internal identity crisis can really, really be alleviated by prioritizing some things for yourself, like the gym, like getting outside, like take your baby to a coffee shop, like do some things, get some movement. It's so, so important.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, what was it that you were saying about, am I just a mom now? And if you haven't, let's say you haven't been living the fitness lifestyle and maybe you just are trying to start postpartum, or it's been super recent and then you got pregnant and like it doesn't feel totally settled yet, I would argue for the exact same reason why you need to do the same thing. Because if you don't prioritize it early on in motherhood, like that's going to set a precedent. It's going to make it harder to integrate later on because everyone says it doesn't get easier, it just gets different, right? So like it's just going to be a tough season, especially probably the first 5 years of having a kid. So like prioritizing it in small ways. And like, I think the biggest thing, like the biggest expectation theme across all of the trimesters is like pregnancy will really challenge perfectionism, all or nothing thinking. And the people that fall victim to that are going to be far less successful than the people that learn how to be adaptable and find how they can do something over nothing.
Agreed, agreed, agreed. Could not agree more. And something you said, maybe this is just a squirrel moment, but something you said brought me here. And I think it's was really helpful for me to hear and share with clients and just in general is if you can work out and you can prioritize your health during pregnancy while you're tired, while you don't feel your best. Everyone has some kind of symptom from pregnancy, right? Like most people do, majority. Even if it is just, I'm more tired. Imagine how much easier it's going to be postpartum while you're feeling the postpartum exhaustion, the lack of sleep, all the good things that come with that to show up for yourself then. So just trying to think of that in those moments where it's hard. It's hard now and it's going to be hard then, but I have to choose my heart and I have to show up and at least you're prepping yourself for what's so that one stuck with me and I wanted to share it.
Absolutely. And I love the reference to choosing your hard too, because like at the end of the day, it is hard no matter what, but you can better yourself through it or the opposite. So
Agreed. Agreed.
okay. Lastly, do you have a couple minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. Nutrition in postpartum. So nutrition in postpartum. Actually, I'll let you take it. Start us off here.
Yeah. So, big thing. Some of this is going to come from are you breastfeeding? Are you not breastfeeding? Right? Big thing. If you're breastfeeding, we're still keeping that food up. No matter what, you're keeping your food up. Right? But especially if you're breastfeeding, breastfeeding burns so many calories, and you want to make sure. And I don't want to say, again, per person, it's variable based on are you breastfeeding and are you formula feeding? Are you solely breastfeeding? What that looks like. But making sure we're eating enough. I think something I see a lot of the times and hear about a lot of the times is people going into postpartum after trying to eat more during pregnancy and being like, okay, baby's out now. Now I just need to starve myself again. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. We're not 180ing here. Let's continue to make sure we're eating enough. And same standards that you held for yourself during pregnancy of balanced blood sugar, making sure you're getting in protein, well balanced meals. Again, your hormones are going to be in a crazy, crazy spot there for a minute. Providing as much support as you can nutritionally is going to be a game changer for the sleep that you're getting or maybe lack thereof, and making sure that if you're able to get in a workout, get in a walk, whatever it might be, that you have the fuel to do so. And because your body's already doing so much, you're healing, you're feeding a baby, you're doing all the things, make sure you're eating enough. This is so, so very important.
Definitely agree. And I think it's like, it's tough because, the question becomes from a lot of people, usually not within the first 12 weeks, but like after someone crosses like 3 months postpartum, like we start to get the question, like, so when can I start dieting and losing this weight or whatever? And like and I'll just explain like my experience working with people through this because like at the end of the day, like our job isn't necessarily to take away our clients' autonomy. Like they are going to do whatever they're going to do, and our job is to guide them safely through it. And so if someone is dead set on dieting, and I've had that happen before, of like, I'm going to diet whether you like it or not. So, like, tell me what I need to be doing, or I'm just going to starve myself. And I'm like, well, this is the better option of the two. Yeah. So it's like, if that is the case, right? What I always like to say is like, fat loss could be possible. But if you are planning to try to exclusively breastfeed, then the number one priority still is breast milk. And then this is where luck and genetics come into play. Like some people can lower their calories a little bit, have no issues producing all the breast milk that they want, and like be able to steadily lose weight over time. I have a client who's literally still doing that right now, 2,000 calories a day. Breast milk is great and like no issues. And then other people, it's like as soon as their body detects that calories have been like brought down a little bit, it's like breast milk, whoop, gone. Right. And so it's like what we can do as coaches is we can kind of play the trial and error game very short term of like, let's try this intake out. Let's see what happens to breast milk production. If it dips for any reason, then we just go right back to what we were doing before. Right. And there's really like especially because I know a lot of people will they'll stow up the milk and things like that. Like there's no risk in like a very short term experiment like that if that's something that you really want to try and it's a priority. And so I always say like we're not going to rule it out, but we are going to obviously operate by whatever the top priority is. And if the top priority is your breast milk, then like we're not going to go there if it's not letting us. And then I have some people that are like, fuck it. If I wean, I wean. And I'm like, okay.
I know. I've had, yeah, yeah. We'll have to do like a whole other podcast at some point when I'm in the postpartum stages. But yeah, that's I think it's like you said, very variable person to person, depending on your genetics. And I'm like, some
Yeah.
people are just so fortunate where
Yeah.
they're able to just taper down like that and see that they're still able to produce. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think big thing is remembering that when you give birth in general, you're going to lose the blood volume, the baby weight, the placenta,
Yeah.
all the good things. So in general, I mean, there's been plenty of people that come out of, they go in, they've gained 25, 35 pounds, whatever. They come out 20 pounds less. And it's like, at the end of the day, you're up 15 pounds and you have to feed your baby. You have to prioritize these things. We're going to make sure you get back where you want to be, but making sure that you're prioritizing your health, your healing, your hormonal health, all the good things prior to is very important.
Yeah. So yeah, I think nutrition's pretty simple there. It's kind of the same idea, and you hit on everything pretty well. So I don't have much to add.
No, this is so fun. I love
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. This is a good one. So yeah, we will revisit this when Rachel is postpartum and talk about that experience. I'm sure more.
Crazy.
Yeah. What is that? Probably 4 to 6 months from now.
I'm about to say maybe we'll wait a month or so and I'll pop on, bring the little one on for a second and then hand her off.
Yeah. But yeah, let us know if you have any questions about anything we didn't cover or maybe anything we covered but not in as much detail because obviously this is a broad stroke over the entire process and there's a lot more detail that we could have gone into. So all that being said, if you are newly expecting, you are wanting to try to conceive and you want to put your health in the best position possible, reach out to us and let's talk about working together because honestly, it could be one of the best investments you make for your future family. So awesome. Alrighty. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you back here next week.